CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Donna, and we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, but something quite different. This is about entrepreneurship if you're in a developing country, and how on earth do you find out about how to be an entrepreneur? Donna, where can people find you?
Okay, I have a couple of websites, e4enterprises.com, and it's spelled out, donnamrosa.com, and always you can hook up with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there.
So explain to us, Donna, we've called this entrepreneurship is hard, try doing it in a developing country. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So I want to set the stage a little bit and explain the nature of entrepreneurship. So I work remotely with entrepreneurs in developing countries. So I coach them. I'm a business coach. But just we have quite a wide variety of backgrounds listening to this. So I want to just explain it for those who don't know. Entrepreneurs are across a continuum. There's a wide range of types of entrepreneurs in developing countries. And you may automatically think of a woman selling crafts in the market. And that's certainly, there's lots of those. But all along the range, we have small businesses, we have medium-sized businesses, we have techpreneurs with MBAs with the next new, bright idea. That whole range of entrepreneurs is found in developing countries. However, I work at the lower end of that, what's called micro enterprises, usually businesses with 1 to 5 employees. So I'm going to focus most of my comments on that set of people because it's where my experience is. Now, there may be people coming from other countries who are investing in these developing countries, or they already live there and they're setting up a business in developing countries. Those people are a little bit different in that they have the benefit usually of education, of business experience, resources to set up a decent sized business. And although those people have to deal with the same systemic problems, the same bureaucratic problems, the nightmares that go along with operating in developing country, the people I work with are people who live there. They're small. They don't have a lot of resources. And so that's mostly where I'm focusing. Both of them have to deal with those systemic problems. And finally, I'm sort of here to create some awareness in the general public about these entrepreneurs. Because you don't hear much about them. If you look up, there's plenty of information about entrepreneurship, but I want people to understand how difficult it is just operating. And so those of you who have international development background probably already know what I'm going to talk about, although your experience may be different than mine. But like I said, I want to create awareness, and that's why we're here to talk. So
Okay, good.
On.
And Andrew says hello.
Hello, Andrew.
So I know that when we did the preparation on this, for me it was really enlightening because of the fact that you were saying, if it's hard enough being an entrepreneur in a developed world, but in a developing world where this is where you were talking, saying you were a farmer, or you were just trying to make a little bit more money, and of course. You make the resources and the availability of some of the things that we actually take for granted, they're just not there.
Yeah, this is the challenge. When we set up a business, we don't think about in the West or in the global North, we don't think about that the electricity is going to go on and off all day long. The power's going off. There may not be clean water. There may not even be electricity in the rural areas. The roads are poor. So trying to get your product to the market on rocky dirt roads. There's a whole host of problems, not having the resources. here in the U.S., if you want to set up a business, you have free resources available to you. It's an organization called SCORE, and you can just contact them and get a mentor, and they'll help you with whatever you need for free. These entrepreneurs don't have that. They don't have mentors. They have problems accessing finance. So they don't qualify for a loan. They don't have any collateral, at least in the traditional financial systems. And so they can't get a loan. They have to bootstrap it. And I always laugh when I hear about lean startups, because these entrepreneurs invented lean startups. They're very creative, and they just have to make do with very little help in most cases. Although that's changing a little bit.
Give us some examples, Donna. You don't need to name names, but just give an example of, I'm working with this this person, and this is the issue that they've got. And
okay, so one of the things that I have to do in working with this range of entrepreneurs is that I have to assess what their business skill is and their level of resources before I can help them. And I need to do that very quickly. And so in some cases, for example, right now I'm working with an entrepreneur. She's more or less a solopreneur, and her one of the first things that we had to do is to figure out whether she's profitable or not. And that's very common. Almost the first thing I look at is, are you making money? And most of the times they don't know, because they are not keeping records. They're not writing down their expenses and what's coming in and what's going out. And so, we looked at some software for her, and nothing was really working. So I finally wound up setting up a spreadsheet, which is really nothing more or less a checkbook. What are you spending money on, and what money's coming in, and what did you sell? And it's set up where she could look at the end of every month whether she's making money. Now, she never knew that before. And this is very common. Like, they don't, a lot of times they're surprised that they're losing money. Most often they're losing money. In this case, she was making incredible high double-digit profit margins, and she didn't know it. So that was a nice surprise. So that's one of the first things we look at. And then we look at, she needed to scale up. Like, the demand for her product is higher than what she can make. And so she needs money to get larger equipment to scale. So I have her looking for funding sources now, like, just find some grants, find some money somehow so that you can scale. Otherwise you're going to stay where you're at. And then the third thing is usually, financial funding, and then growth. How is this business going to grow? Where are you going to market your product? How are you going to market it? And it's, again, I have to put everything into very, very simple terms. And this is the challenge of it. And this is the fun of it. I know all these business concepts because of my time in the corporate world, but I have to boil it down to something that they can understand and that they can learn in the context of their own businesses. And the reason I love doing it is because it doesn't take that much for the light bulb to go off. And then they see, they learn very quickly.
So what happens if, in a situation, if they find out they're not making any money?
Then we have to take our next thing is we have to figure out why not.
Right.
And then take the steps. Is it her expenses are too high? Is it she's not selling enough? Is it she's not selling in the right places? How do we either lower her costs or increase her revenues very quickly?
But, and also, I'm assuming that you're doing this all through Zoom or Teams or something like that. So they've at least got access to some sort of PC, Mac, and an internet connection.
Exactly right. Yeah, those are the two things that they need. And it's more and more widespread now in developing countries than when I started this, that, they have at least access to a computer and internet. And what it usually happens is we work maybe once a week, once every other week or so, depending on what program it is. And we'll talk about whatever the issues are, and then I'll usually give them some kind of task to do. And then they come back the next week, and I check in with them. Did you do this, and what happened? And we have to go through your pitch deck, or we have to do whatever. And so they work during the week, and then we get on Zoom. And that way I can help them over time, as opposed to training, where I just go in and train them on something, and that's it. That's not usually the kind of help that they need. They need
But when it comes to resources, it's about resources. It is about raw materials. It's about people. So it could also be raw materials about the knowledge that you're giving as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. A lot of what I do is really, the majority of it is just business judgment and business advisory, just the benefit of having been in business for so long. And they don't know, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I apply for that? Should I, they don't have the experience. Usually they're young. And it's just the benefit of having me to bounce things off of. So it's all kinds of resources. They don't have anything. They don't have benefit of education. They don't have, someone to help them. They don't have financial resources. They don't have that business judgment to figure out if something is good or not.
Because I remember you saying that, there's you might get a farmer that just says, right, I'm going to grow something an additional, but they've never thought about stock control.
Yeah, they never thought about anything. They're just, again, with the people that I work with mostly, they're called sometimes entrepreneurs of necessity. There are no jobs in these regions, so they have to start a business. And so they know how to do something, and they'll think, well, I'll sell this. But they don't know all the things that go with setting up a business, keeping track, keeping inventory, none of that, none of that stuff. That has to be taught.
I guess you're doing it all in English.
Yes. When I've worked, I started off working in the field. So I would go to Africa or wherever. And sometimes I was provided with translation when I needed it. But here it's, well, I have done some translated trainings over the internet when they provide someone to do the translation. It just doubles the time that we have to spend.
And so the $50 million question is, so who pays for this?
Yeah. So what I do, my business model is such that I target my services to organizations rather than the entrepreneurs themselves, because they don't have the money to pay for it. Although I do quite a lot of pro bono work, quite a lot. And so it's an organization that would say, we have this group of entrepreneurs. Would you work with them for X amount of weeks? And that could be a business incubator in Africa. It could be a chamber of commerce somewhere that wants to help their businesses. It could be an NGO or a foundation or a donor project, a UN or or USAID project that just needs to, that wants to work with entrepreneurs. So it's always some kind of organization that's paying me to work with these entrepreneurs.
Because as a side note, you're the first person that's ever said to me, when I've done this, and I've been doing this for 6 years, that said, I've got nothing to sell.
Well, I do have something to sell to the organization.
Because the people that you're in effect talking to now, you're not, everybody who comes on here really has got something to sell, even though we coat it in a way of saying, well, the person's going to be interesting. But you're not actually selling to the audience that you're talking to right now. You haven't got a coaching methodology or something like that, because that's not who you're selling to.
Yeah. What I would be selling to, if there's anyone in the audience that is part of an organization that needs help coaching entrepreneurs, they could hire me to do the coaching. And it could be a corporate that has a CSR program that wants to help. And I would encourage people to, part of why I'm doing this is encourage people to set up these programs to to work with these entrepreneurs. Corporates have a lot of business experience that they could share. It's
So,
just
how could the people watching get involved?
yeah. So they could. There's several things. There's organizations that support entrepreneurs, and they could find one and donate to that. If they wanted to set up a program, or if they have the entrepreneurs, they can contact me and say, what's the best type of program, and I can work with them. Don't go it alone. Don't just say, oh, here's a bunch of entrepreneurs, I'm going to help them, because you have to understand the situation they're in, and what their problems are. So I can help with that.
So Samson says greetings from Zambia.
Hello, Samson.
Yeah, I've been to Zambia myself. I've been. It's a wonderful place.
I have not.
You've got to go. There's a
Yeah.
Zambia is a fantastic country.
Absolutely.
So in terms of these people getting resources, one of the things is capital. So they're not going to go down the bank and get. So how do they raise money?
Well, there's a couple ways. Either they use friends and family, the way that entrepreneurs anywhere do. Sometimes they can get people to loan them money. They save up and use their own money mostly. There are some programs where there are a lot of programs that provide financing for these entrepreneurs. They have to go out and find them, and that's the assignment that I gave one of my mentees is go out and find the grants, go out and find the programs. There are more and more agencies that are making money available, either through equity, debt, or just grant funding. And so they're out there. They have to go find them. But to go a traditional bank, maybe a local bank, if they have a business plan, a local bank might loan them money. But normally they need collateral, and they have no collateral. So
I've had a couple of comments. And Andrew said it's mentorship for entrepreneurs. Thank you, Andrew. And Mark, a good friend of mine, was the Zambian foreign minister for Japan. There you go. It's amazing how small the world has become.
Yeah, especially over the internet.
So, have you got any? Are there any other case studies, Donna, in terms of the people that you're working with, so to give people examples?
One of the case studies that I talk about a lot is the very first assignment that I did in South Africa, and I was sent to work with a farmer on his business issues, and I didn't even know what I needed to do, but I started to just dig in and ask and that's what I do. I ask a lot of questions, a lot. And so I started asking a lot of questions, and I started setting up systems for him to automate his farm operations. And I analyzed his business. I set up some spreadsheets for him. He had a computer at the time, which was very unusual. And he thought that was the best thing ever, like, an automated invoice where he had to just input his, the liters of milk and the price, and it spat out an invoice. But I looked at his business, and, something like 80% of his business was with one customer. And his sales were very low, and that's a very risky position. And he was making something called amasi, and it was a valuated product. And so, we talked about his raw material costs and how he could lower those, how he could sell product. Could he make value-added products for the local markets? And it turns out he could with very little investment. So we focused on, he was going to buy some pigs and chickens and things like that. And I said, no, you have this operation here. Let's maximize the use of that. And so we steered him toward producing different types of dairy. He was a dairy farmer. So yogurt and butter and things that the local people couldn't afford to buy in the grocery store, but he could supply them at a very good profit for him, but also a good price for the people. So it's a matter of, steering them, see what they have, what they don't have, and getting them profitability. He was very grateful. The administrative time that I saved him went from 4 hours down to 20 minutes with just the computer and setting up some systems for him. So every case is so different, and that's what makes this really interesting.
Mm. And I love the idea, the fact that there was this, you saw an opportunity in the market to actually say, here we can produce something at a relatively good margin, and we can sell it to other people because they can't afford it. So kind of we're getting two
Exactly.
things for the price of one, if you understand what I mean.
Exactly right. And that makes a good fit. And I've had to do sometimes, where I've had to do some very, very crude market research to find out if there's a demand. But it was better than nothing. And it gave me an idea as to whether there was a demand. I'd go out, for example, to potential customers or restaurants and see whether they want this stuff. So it's just fly by the seat of your pants,
I can
it's
imagine.
exactly what it
I
is.
can imagine. Yes, I can imagine. It's really interesting, and
It's extremely
mm.
interesting. They're all different at different
so
levels.
so Donna, thank you so much for coming on and talking about it. Remind people where they can get hold of you.
Yes, hook up with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect with,
You're Donna Rosa on
yeah,
LinkedIn.
Donna Rosa on LinkedIn.
Rosa.
Yep. You can email me at donna@e4enterprises.com. You can go to that website. That's my business website. To find out more about me and about my stories, you can go to donnamrosa.com, and you can get a hold of me through my websites and LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on, Donna.
Okay.
And
Thank
thank
you,
you to
everyone.
Andrew, Samson, and Mark for your comments.